Who's ready for some football? Well, if you are, you are in the right place. We are previewing all 32 teams as we make our dive toward the kickoff of the 2024 NFL season, which begins on Thursday, September 5th. Continuing to make my way through the AFC North, today I am looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Steelers went through three quarterbacks in 2023. We saw Kenny Pickett, we saw Mitch Trubisky, and we saw Mason Rudolph. And yet it did not impact their ability to grind out wins. They finished 9-8, third in the AFC North, but they did qualify for the playoffs. After another disappointing wildcard exit, though, it was time for a change. All three of those quarterbacks are gone. A new set of passers is in, and offensive coordinator Arthur Smith has been tapped to make it all work. As I mentioned, it was a revolving door at quarterback this offseason. Trubisky traded to the Eagles, or Trubisky signed with the Bills. We saw Pickett traded to the Eagles. Rudolph signed with the Titans. That left the Steelers trying to remake their room. First, they brought in veteran Russell Wilson, who was released after 2 seasons with the Broncos. He signed a 1-year deal. Then the Steelers traded for former first-round pick Justin Fields. They declined his 5th-year option, so he's also in the final year of a deal. So they have 2 quarterbacks in a contract year, probably vying to see who can get it done. They also saw some changes at receiver. They traded veteran Deontay Johnson to the Carolina Panthers. Allen Robinson also left the team in free agency. In the draft, though, the Steelers snagged Roman Wilson. He played with the Michigan Wolverines in 2023. He caught 107 passes for 1,700 yards and 20 touchdowns in his time with Michigan. They also used picks to beef up the offensive line, grabbing Troy Fautanu and Zach Frazier. They added some veteran pieces in the wide receiver room with Van Jefferson, Scotty Miller, and Quez Watkins. They also added Cordero Patterson in the backfield, and they brought in veterans Patrick Queen and Cam Sutton on defense. So what does this mean for fantasy? Well, the competition at quarterback will be interesting. Wilson was quarterback 14 for the Broncos, while Fields was QB 18 for the Bears. Yet both players frustrated fans and coaches with their former teams. Now they're both looking for a fresh start. The Steelers have maintained that Russell Wilson is the starter, though he's been banged up, and we've seen some good things from Fields. I think the competition will really be finally decided in the preseason. I am leaning toward Wilson being the starter, at least at the outset of the season, but I don't think either finishes above the QB3 range. And I actually think we're going to end up seeing both of them play during the season. One of the better places for fantasy for the Steelers is in the backfield. And this is also due to Arthur Smith. He likes to run a strong rushing offense. They return a great pair of runners in Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. Last year, Warren was running back 22. Harris was running back 23. I think they're going to be relatively close again. I think ththey're both going to finish as low-end RB2s again. I like the rotation. I think they're both starting options for you. In the passing game, it's really all about George Pickens. He's the best receiver and probably the only big focal point. He finished as wide receiver 29 last year, so you might be thinking, hey, the sky's the limit for him. But that hasn't always been the case under an Arthur Smith offense. Last year, his top receiver in Atlanta, Drake London, was just wide receiver 37. I think Pickens probably ends up as a wide receiver 3, maybe a top-end wide receiver 3. Roman Wilson, I like as a dynasty pick, but I'm not really high on him in redraft, especially since he got injured a little bit here in camp and probably off to a slow start. The only other fantasy consideration for me is tight end Pat Freiermuth. They have a lot of tight ends, but Smith has been known to use tight ends. I like him as a top-end tight end too. So what about the Steelers in general? Well, it's been said so many times. Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season as the head coach of the Steelers. It's very possible it could happen in 2024, but I'm not betting on it. As I said, I think this is a division where all 4 teams will finish above 500. Does that mean the Steelers are in the playoffs again? I'm not so sure. I think they could end up still being the 4th best team in their division. It is just a crazy good division. So we shall see what comes of the Steelers and that competition between Wilson and